Welcome viewers, today we have a heated controversy surrounding CNN's Kaitlan Collins, who is under fire for her remarks about the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Collins stated that law enforcement had not laid out a direct, official motive behind the killing, despite reports highlighting the suspect's strong left-wing views and personal animosity toward Kirk. This comment quickly sparked backlash, with conservative media figures and politicians, including Senator Ted Cruz, slamming Collins and CNN for what they called misinformation and an attempt to downplay the political motive. Cruz argued that authorities had already linked the suspect's actions to left-wing extremism, making this a flashpoint in the ongoing battle over media bias and political narratives.
If you want to work on bringing this country, it's my time, not yours.
My God.
If you want to talk about
dividing this country,
it is
I
my
follow
time.
you on your social media posts that
It is
tear
my
this country
time
apart.
to address your falsehoods.
Oh,
You are an
you can try
embarrassment
all
to the
you
division
want
in this country.
to not
Senator,
take
it is
responsibility
my time.
for what
You
you
had
have
your
said.
time.
Sir, you're
Your
making
time
a
is
mockery of
over.
this.
Chairman, I have to say, it used to be that to see theater, you had to go to the Kennedy Center. Now, apparently, you need only go to the Senate Judiciary Committee and see our Senate Democrats berating the director of the FBI, which, okay, it's not, partisan politics is not new in the United States Congress. Do you believe Antifa is a terrorist organization?
I believe Antifa is associated with a lot of violence in this country. As to its designation, I'll leave that to the appropriate authorities.
So I would encourage the administration to designate Antifa as a terrorist organization, to go systematically after Antifa. They've committed acts of violence all over the country.
And joining me now is Senator Ted Cruz. And Senator, I think you've probably been part of some theatrical moments of your own in some of those hearings. Obviously, it got quite contentious at points today. But what you were arguing there, and what you were talking there about with the director Kash Patel, was actually something President Trump himself talked about 5 years ago when he said the U.S. was going to designate Antifa as a terrorist organization. You and Senator Cassidy had actually introduced a resolution calling for that 1 year before. Do you know why it didn't happen then, and do you expect it to happen now?
You know, I do think it's going to happen now, and I'm urging the Department of Justice and the FBI and the entire administration to do so. And more broadly, what I'm urging them to do, and at the hearing today, what I urge Director Patel to do, is follow the money. That much of this violence that we've seen it is not organic, that there is real money that is funding it. So the Black Lives Matter and Antifa riots all over the country, there was real money behind that. The anti-Israel, anti-Semitic riots on college campuses, there was real money behind that. The open border riots we saw in LA and across the country, there's real money behind that. I'm not the only person who noticed that at the anti-Semitic protests on college campuses, many of the tents all matched. And so what I'm urging the Department of Justice to do is look at who's funding it. And indeed, I've introduced legislation to aid in that. It's called the Stop Funders Act. And what that legislation would do is very simple. It adds rioting to the list of predicate offenses under RICO. And that would enable the Department of Justice to use RICO, a very powerful tool for going after organized crime, not just to go after the people committing specific acts of violence, but to go after those who are writing checks to foment that violence. And I think that would have a massive effect pulling back and limiting this violence.
Yeah, but can I ask you on just the Antifa part of this, what existing federal law would give the president or the State Department the authority to be able to designate a domestic group as a terrorist organization? Is there one?
Well, what I have called for, they're clearly carrying out acts of terrorism. They're carrying them out domestically. They're organizing. They're engaged in direct acts of violence. And indeed, one of the things that I asked Director Patel is what evidence is there that there are other people who had foreknowledge of this assassination of Charlie Kirk. We know that he was engaged in Reddit conversations with others, and we know that the shell casings that he used in the rifle had Antifa slogans on them and had transgender slogans on them. And it appears from what's been reporting that there were extensive discussions in various Reddit and Discord organizations. To the extent others had foreknowledge and aided and assisted, that may well be a manifestation of Antifa violence or transgender violence. We've seen a disproportionate incident of transgender violence as well. And so examining what groups potentially are behind these acts of violence, I think it is overwhelmingly clear things like the anti-Semitic protest had money behind it. With respect to Charlie Kirk's murder, that is not determined yet, but I think it should be investigated very thoroughly.
You said that you believe that left-wing groups should be investigated. You want to know where the financing is coming from for protests. Do you believe that they should also be looking into right-wing groups as well, or do you believe it should only be limited to that?
Look, I believe anyone engaged in acts of violence should be prosecuted and go to jail. But I will say there has been an enormous amount, and CNN has been guilty of this, of both sidesism, of saying, gosh, both sides are violent. And understand, yes, there is some violence on both sides, but it is the left that overwhelmingly celebrates this. It is leftists that have been celebrating. You look at Blue Sky, and it is a cesspool of leftists celebrating the murder of Charlie Kirk. You look at recent polling that shows over 50% of Democrats saying violence against Elon Musk is justified, violence against Donald Trump is justified. You look at Democrats who do things like what Kamala Harris did, of giving money and urging people to give money to bail out violent rioters and Antifa riots. It is only one side that justifies this violence. My view is if you commit acts of violence, you should be prosecuted.
This controversy also underscores the tension between journalism and politics in high-profile cases. For Collins, the priority was sticking to what had been officially released, ensuring CNN did not risk misreporting or complicating ongoing investigations. For Cruz and other conservatives, however, the evidence of Tyler Robinson's ideological hatred toward Charlie Kirk was already overwhelming, and they saw Collins' wording as a deliberate attempt to downplay political extremism on the left. In many ways, this debate reflects a broader cultural battle over who controls the narrative, journalists adhering to legal caution or politicians and commentators shaping public opinion through sharper, more immediate claims.